would like to thank Mohtaz for inviting me over to Cairo Security Camp. And he was like after me about asking me about the topic and the description of the talk that I wanted to give. So usually I'm not very good at giving non-technical talks, the high-level talks. So I asked him, what kind of talk do you want? Do you want a high-level talk or do you want a really technical talk? So he said, kind of a mix and a high-level talk. So to be honest, I didn't have anything in mind, so I said, okay, I'll give a talk on the usual rants. Anyways, but I hope the talk, you would be able to take away something from the talk at least. And so I'm just going to touch upon some usual rants made by security folks and non-security folks and look at the logical conclusion or the outcome for those particular problems. So before we start, a little bit about who I am. I am the director of research at Payatu Technologies. It's a boutique security testing company, and most of my work involves taking money from the company and wasting it on useless research, hoping to one day find a good product or a good solution. But anyways, so if, most of my research you'll find it, I'll usually put it as open source online. So what do we do in the company when we are not working? We do charity by breaking the products for free. So we kind of look at products and see so we have not jumped on the bug bounty bandwagon yet, but we are probably going to encourage our employees to go ahead and participate in professional bug bounties like the Google Bounty Program, Facebook, BugCrowd, HackerOne. I'm also the founder of Nile, the open security community. It's a non-profit organization. So if for people who don't know about it, it's like a community for security folks, very similar to OWASP, but the focus is not just web. I mean, it's anything and everything to do with security. We have monthly meetings which are totally free for anyone to attend. And so just a little bit of unsolicited advice. Personally, I and the people behind the community, we have seen an increase in the level of participation from the community, from the government, from the academia when it comes to security. Previously, even in India, there were good people. I don't say that there were not good people, but there was no way where they could come at a single place, interact, share their information. So when we started this, we were a little skeptical in how many. We also wanted to know how many researchers there are in India who actually do good work and can come and share their knowledge. Surprisingly, within 2-3 years, we have found really good talent in India. And if I'm not sure about the status of OWASP, if you guys do not have a community here, I would really suggest that please start contributing to a community, whichever community it is, whether it's OWASP or anything. One of the good things about contributing to the community is you get to know a lot of people. Otherwise, what Mohtaz is doing is really good here, organizing a conference, but that's only once a year. So you'll get to meet people only once a year. Other than that, I'm also the founder of Nullcon Security Conference. It's a small conference we host in Goa. If you guys are interested, maybe you can come down for attending or presenting or playing CTF. Yeah, I'm also an author of a few open source security tools like Jugaad, Android. I'm currently writing 2 tools, Telepawn and DexFuzzer. So as soon as these 2 tools are ready, I'm going to put it online so that you guys can, if you guys are interested, maybe you can add features to it or maybe just try and fuzz Dex files. Telepawn is basically to interact with the modem of the baseband through AT commands. So the idea of this tool is to, so I'm creating it from the perspective of pen testing IVR applications, like the applications where you punch in codes and things like when you call your bank, it says press 1 for English, press 2 for Arabic, and then press your phone number and press your PIN code. So kind of like pen testing those applications for using this tool. Okay, so disclaimer, all the views and ideas, whatever statistics I'm going to show, they are all personal work. It has nothing to do with my employer. And if there are any open source lovers in the conference, please don't kill me, because I'm going to talk pro as well as cons of both the parties, both the bandwagons, the open source lovers and the open source haters. Alright, so the agenda of today's talk is I'm going to talk on Rant 1, I'm going to talk on Rant 2, and then I'm going to talk on Rant 3, and then we're going to close the session. If there are any questions, then I can take the questions after Rant 3. Alright, so Rant number 1 is the FOSS community. So this came to me because I have been involved with the FOSS community for like 10 years now, and whenever you meet a FOSS guy, especially a FOSS guy who's not a developer, the developers have the same thinking, but they're not as pushy as people who are FOSS enthusiasts and don't code. So the general answer that you get is when you talk to them and you say that, so these guys will say, so you know, FOSS is really good and because it's very secure. And when you ask them, why do you think any open source is secure and not, so most of the times their comparison is between Windows and Linux. So when you ask them, okay, why is Linux more secure and Windows not very secure? So the common answer that you get is because it has permissions and it has different users. So it is secure by design. I mean, that's like the 80s. You know, that's like talking about the hippies. It's good thing that Unix came up with such a good design of separating users and creating permissions where you could not actually attack another user or do certain things. But it's not just about the design. I mean, there are a lot of other inherent issues in the way certain things are implemented and also design, which make both the operating systems insecure. So, and the enterprise fanatics would say that, you know, open source is not generally managed because people do it for free. So there is no professionalism in when you're creating an open source software. True to an extent, but just look at Linux. I mean, look at look at Apache. Given a choice, I would prefer to use Linux. Given a choice for web server, I would prefer to use Apache on Linux. Not just because I'm an open source lover or an open source developer, but because there is no cost involved in it, right? And they are pretty much, if you talk about Linux, it is pretty much everywhere. Okay, so before I continue, we'll just play a small game. And so you just have to, I'll play the video. There are two teams, white team and the black team. And you just have to count the number of times the white team catches the ball. Okay, not throws the ball, but catches the basketball. And if you have seen this video, then I would request you to please keep your mouth shut.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Everyone knows what to do? I'm sorry, I can't help that. So you have to count the number of times the white team passes or catches the ball. You can give me an approximate answer by the end. You want me to play that again, or anybody wants to take a guess? 15? 13, 15, 14, 11, 12. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Any other number? 7, 9. Okay, the correct answer will get a goodie. The first one. So 7, 9, 11 to 15, right? All right, we'll come to the answer after my presentation. And this is game number 2. Actually, this does not have anything to do with the presentation. I just kept it like that so that you guys don't fall asleep. Okay, so if you look at this image, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And I need an honest answer. She's not wearing anything. Necklace, okay. Okay. How sweet. Tim? Anything. I need honest answers. That was not very honest, I think. She's hot, yeah. What?
Her chest, you know. The thing.
The thing, yes.
No, it's okay. I'm not gonna say her tits. Okay.
Oh, her tits. Okay. 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 All right. So I've heard a lot of things like vamp, seductress, a lot of stuff, and we'll come to that after my talk. So that was just to keep you awake. All right. So the first rant about. So I'm going to specifically look at discuss something about Unix and Windows, and then we are going to look at the stats for the vulnerabilities. So when I talk about Unix, I'm talking about all Unix-like operating systems, open source of course, not Mac or other non-open source Unix-like operating systems. Okay, so if we look at some of the critical problems, like Stack Overflow, for example, does only Windows have Stack Overflow issues? No, right? Linux also has the same problem, Stack Overflow issues, or other memory corruption issues. Kernel null pointer dereference, where you can actually escalate privileges through vulnerable drivers. Does Windows only have this vulnerability? No. Linux is also vulnerable to this particular vulnerability, although they have mitigations now against it. Use after free, is it only Windows? No, right? Even in Linux you have the same issues. So, and when you try to tell this thing to the open source lover bandwagon, they will just not listen to you. I mean, I have tried explaining the problem to them at a very basic level, and they would just not budge. I mean, they're still, their answer is still Linux is still secure. So anyways, most of these problems are by design within the operating system or the kernel, and you just cannot help it. Okay, another thing is remote process infection. I'm specifically talking about it because I've written a tool on it. Windows provides an API, so most of the malwares that you used to see on Windows, they will use simple functionality like creating memory within a remote process like Internet Explorer or lsas.exe, and inject the malicious code into those processes using create remote thread. So thankfully this was not there on Linux. You know, there was no API where you could actually inject remote code, inject code remotely onto another process, obviously for the same user. So we went ahead and we created an API where you can actually, at runtime, you can specify the PID just like how create remote thread does. You can specify a PID, you can specify a payload that you want to execute within the context of a remote process. And my talk on Jugaad tool is there on YouTube. You can just search on it if you're interested in to look at how exactly it infects the remote processes, and I've given a demo using Firefox. Okay, so finally, some statistics on, so for using these vulnerability statistics, I quickly looked at the CVEs. From CVE details, obviously, it will not have enough of data, but good enough to create graphs for showing that, whether it's open source or closed source, everybody has, almost equal amount of vulnerabilities. So if we look at browser stats, by the way, I've just downloaded all the CVEs that were there till 2013, and I made the various search queries because for Windows specifically, there were a lot of vulnerabilities which you cannot just search from Windows kernel. So you have to search Windows 2000, Windows 2003. For Internet Explorer, you have to search Internet Explorer IE. So basically, these are the vulnerabilities that CVE has for the browsers. It says Firefox has around 909 vulnerabilities, Chrome has 772, Internet Explorer has 736, Opera has 13. So if you quickly look at the browser stats, what does it tell you? It tells you that Opera is the most secure browser in the world, right? And Chrome is not as secure as Internet Explorer. And Firefox is the most vulnerable browser. So, is that true? Same is the case with Windows and IE. Anyways, if you look at the operating system stats, for taking out the operating system stats, I kept it at a minimum to only the kernel and most of the required services, not going beyond like running X service or a video player on Linux has this vulnerability. So for Linux, I think 95% of the vulnerabilities that were taken were Linux kernel vulnerability. And for Windows, it was Windows kernel plus the core components of Windows, like the DNS client, or I've taken some Active Directory as well, because I consider that as part of Microsoft, because the responsibility lies with Microsoft, whether it's only the kernel or the core components of Windows. So this stat is, I was not expecting this stat to look like this, but anyways, it shows that Linux has more vulnerabilities than Windows. But anyways, as Tim mentioned, and we discussed it last year, that for Windows, people might not file CVEs for most of the bugs. But anyways, the difference is 200. Okay, database stats. This is what I kind of expected, where you will have less. So from the open source lovers perspective, you will see that MySQL has less number of vulnerabilities, and Oracle has around 426 vulnerabilities. For some strange reason, I couldn't find vulnerabilities after 2012 for Oracle. So maybe it's now 100% secure. Okay, so one more question to the Linux lovers bandwagon. Now we have one of the operating systems for smartphones, which is heavily targeted for malware or exploitation. So does it mean that Linux kernel has suddenly become vulnerable? Earlier on it was that Windows is not secure and it is crap, and Linux is really secure and you should use Linux instead of Windows. I've even seen security consultants actually going ahead and changing all the client machines from Windows to Linux, not because of cost, but because they think that changing all your Windows system to Linux systems will make you more secure. So this is a false sense of security. You will be secure till a point of time, but if your work is really critical, if your data is really critical, the hackers are going to, or the crackers are going to get you someday or the other. They're going to start targeting your operating system specific exploits. As we can see in the case of Android, where you have more number of bugs being reported, more number of malware on Android apps as compared to iOS and Windows. Now, is it because Windows phone is really secure and Android phones are not secure? I don't think so. The moment Windows, I hope it doesn't, but if it does jump in the number of smartphones in the world or the market share, we are going to see more exploitation and malware on Windows Phone. Okay, so the conclusion to this rant is, again, don't go by the stereotype. Understand what you are trying to deploy in your organization. If you're deploying an Apache, you know that it's a very stable product and there's a professional team behind it. But if you're deploying like an XYZ server on your enterprise network, you need to first go through and understand what is their development cycle, what are the kind of bugs being filed for that, is that project still live or is it dead, and other stuff. Not just hearing about open source or hearing something about the enterprise folks that don't use open source. So the conclusion here is that it will not matter whether it's an open source or whether it's closed source. Most of the exploits and attacks will be decided based on target as well as the usage for that particular product. All right, so rant number 2, hacker. The word, the H word. There was a time when even in the developer community, people used to call, like, this guy is .NET hacker, this guy is Linux hacker, or this guy is kernel hacker. The word has been polluted so much over the years, and special thanks to the media. I mean, whenever there is a news, the news will say hackers broke into a bank. The hackers stole these many passwords or credit card numbers. And to such an extent that I've even had lawyers at summits on a panel talking and saying that the word hacker should be banned. It's really funny. I'm like, seriously? How does that matter even if you're going to ban the word? And then comes the whole ethical hacker bandwagon. I seriously still till date don't understand the meaning of an ethical hacker. If you're talking about penetration tester, you can call him a penetration tester. You don't have to call him ethical hacker. Hacker is a totally different term. It is not related to security. It's like if this is hacker, this is security. So he might be doing security work, he might not be doing security work. So again, don't focus on the stereotypical ideology. I think focus on the person. If you are working with someone, I've even had cops whenever we talk to them for any forensics work or anything, I'm there to help them out, and this is how they start. So you are a hacker, and I mean, this is in a very sarcastic tone, as if they're going to put me behind bars. So this gives a very negative impact when people like us or the hackers within the community want to help the government to do something. And we are here to help you. Bug bounties, I think we've already covered a lot on bug bounties. Tim explained it very beautifully yesterday. We had a bug bounty session here as well in the morning, and I think there's a bug hunters talk going on right now. So I will not touch much on it, but I would just like to say from my experience that places where the bug bounty is not mature, I'm talking from the enterprise perspective or the company perspective, not from the hunter's perspective, you need to understand that if somebody is reporting a bug to you, it is not harmful. I mean, I have friends calling me up and telling me, hey, we work for this particular bank and this guy has reported a vulnerability. Can you please tell him to keep quiet? Again, I'm like, what? If he wanted to publish it or if he wanted to sell it in the underground, why would he send you an email in the first place? So to enterprises, I think it is more important that you focus on the report, not the reporter. There are companies who, as soon as get a bug report, they start contacting their lawyers and the legal team on how to either sue the guy or how to be careful so that you can be protected from the guy or the bug or whatever. So I think we just need to, it's common sense, right? If somebody is sending an email, he's not going to deliberately publish it or sell it in the underground. There are two things that he may need, money or fame. If you can't give money, you can at least have Hall of Fame page on your website. Does that cost you? I don't know, probably 1 hour of a web developer's work to create a page that fits your website and a link on the home page that says Hall of Fame, and you can just put that person's name and he'll be happy with it. And obviously, fix the issue. Yeah. These people, the bug hunters will get annoyed if you don't fix it like till 1 year or till 2 years. Oh, rant number 3, final rant, the NSA Snowden issue. Honestly, this is one thing that has really hit me. I have been in security for the past like 11 years, but I was not that careful, but I'm really careful now. So somehow, subconsciously, this thing has hit me, and I'm now careful in when I'm using online services, whether even Facebook. I'm to an extent which I'm really scared about. To an extent, when I'm supposed to be typing a message on Facebook, I think twice whether I should type this message or not, whether this message looks political or not. Because if these guys can do it, obviously my government can also do it. So should I write anything that can threaten them in any way? Or if I'm storing my data, my company's data on cloud storage, can I store this contract because this contract is with a government agency? Can I store it online? Should I encrypt it? So thankfully, it is a boon as well as a curse, because now you know what happens. But one good thing that has come out of it is that all of us, all the security folks have a lot of work to do in the future now. We are, especially even in our country, and I'm hearing from friends all over the world, is that even the governments have started thinking whether we should use US-based services or whether we should recreate them here, whether we should use security services of companies outside the country, or whether we should use local talent here. So I think this is one good thing that has come out of it, where at least the local companies will have some say and can come up with their innovative solutions. So earlier on, it was very difficult for startups to come up with a product and say, hey, please try this product. So most of the time what happens is that, hey, I don't want your product. It's like, a bunch of hackers wrote this product. This company in US has been working on a similar product for 5 years. I'm sure that that product is good. Why? Because it's from US. So I think that thing has started to change now. Now even the government folks or the companies, for me, Indian companies are coming up and saying, hey, you provide the service. We have been using service from outside. Now we prefer using it from a local company here. So I think you should look at it as a boon and not as a curse in a way. And who does not do it? I mean, let's be honest. NSA is doing it at a very large scale. All the other countries are doing it at a scale where they have funding. These guys have enormous funding. If any country has that amount of funding, will they do it or will they not do it? Yes, they will do it. All right, back to the games. So who said 13? Two guys. Okay. So the answer was 13, but the objective was different.
The answer is 13. But did you...
There's some problem.
This, how many passes does the team in white... The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
I'm not sure if that's clear, but so the idea again is, I told you to look at something, and you only looked at that particular. Your objective was to just count that, right? And if your objective is limited, then you are obviously going to miss out on a lot of other things. So again, the conclusion is, please don't go on stereotypes. Open your mind, look at everything, understand what you're dealing with first. The next is, so this photograph is of a beautiful Hollywood star in the early 20th century, and she's known for bold scenes and lot of controversies. Her name is Hedy Lamarr. So if you look at her life history, there are a lot of controversies. She's done a lot of stuff which is not good. She was even caught stealing in a store, and a lot of other stuff. But there's one thing noticeable about her is that she's got a patent on frequency hopping algorithm, and she has no education whatsoever that I know of specifically on physics or engineering or whatever. She created this system with another person. So basically this was during World War II, I think. They got a patent on frequency hopping algorithm created so that the torpedoes can bypass the radar system. So whatever communication the torpedo is having can be not encrypted, but since it hops frequencies, it's not easy for the radars to catch the communication. So again, needless to say, when you're looking at a target or a subject or anything with regards to your work, enterprise, anything, please keep your mind open and not block it because of certain stereotypes or certain stereotypical thinking. Yes, so keep calm and think like a hacker, not like a normal person. Yeah, the image credits, and finally, thank you very much. Thank you, Blue Kaizen. Thank you, Cairo. Thank you, Egypt. We really had a nice time here, and I'm sure I'm going to come back again over the coming years. Any questions? Or we can take the, oh yeah, okay.
What's by the shisha?
The guy on the right, in the photograph, I think he's having watermelon, and the guy on the left is having peach. All right, thank you.